for Finwë alone had not fled from the horror of the dark. Today we narrate the life and story of Finwë, the first king of the Noldor. The exact date of Finwë's birth is not recorded, but we can speculate that he is born between Years of the Trees 1050 and 1102 in Cuiviénen, in the far east of Middle-earth, where the first elves awoke. His name is said to be one of the oldest among the Eldar, but its meaning is not clear. He is descended from the elf father, Tata, and the elder woman, Tatye, of the clan that will later become the Noldor, and is born black-haired with bright blue-grey eyes. Orome, the huntsman of the Valar, stumbled upon them in one of his many hunts of the evil creatures in Middle-earth, and he came to love the elves. Later, the Valar held a council and decided to summon the elves to Valinor. Due to seeds that had been planted in their hearts by Melkor, and the fact that they had only seen the Valar in their wrath when they went to war, they were first unwilling to answer the summons. So Orome was sent by the Valar to select 3 ambassadors among the elves, Ingwe, Finwë, and Elwë, to travel with him to Valinor and report back to the others what they had seen there. In Aman, Finwë saw the 2 trees of Valinor, which had been sunk into creation by Yavanna long ago, and he was filled with wonder by the majesty of the land of the Valar, and even more by the splendor and the light of the 2 trees. Thus, Finwë and the other 2 ambassadors returned to Cuiviénen with Orome and attempted to persuade the elves to answer the call of the Valar and resettle to Valinor. Half of Finwë's people heeded his words and followed him to the west. His followers were later known as the Noldor. Finwë and Elwë, the leaders of the second and third hosts of the elves, the Noldor and the Teleri, had become great friends. And when Finwë arrived at last to Aman, he was saddened by the separation of him and his dear friend, as Elwë had decided to stay in Middle-earth. The Noldor, now in Valinor, had settled in Tirion upon the hill of Tuna with the Vanir, the first host of the elves, and had accepted as their kings Finwë and Ingwe respectively. It is said that while the masons were building Finwë's house, they first discovered the earth gems, and with them they created many jewels that made the whole land of Valinor even more brilliant. As the years went by, Ingwe and the Vanir removed to Valma, the city of the Valar, which was located deeper into the land of Aman, thus making Finwë the only king in Tirion. It is here, in the days of bliss, that the great love between Finwë, the king, and Míriel, the queen, began. Together, they had a son, Glúthien or Fëanor. The bearing of this child consumed the spirit and body of his mother, as Míriel used too much of her strength to give birth to him. Finwë grieved for her, as he loved her deeply and had a desire to have many children with her. Thus, he said to his wife, "Surely there is healing in Aman. Here, all weariness can find rest." But Míriel's strength for life kept leaving her, and so, by the counsel of Manwë, she was allowed to rest in the gardens of Lórien, the realm of the Valar, Irmu and Este. But despite all this, her fea, or spirit, left her body, and it took its place in the halls of Mandos, where the elvish fea went after death. Finwë lived on in grief, and he visited his wife's body in the gardens often, calling her name, hoping that she may return. But in a land where everything is in eternal bliss, he was the only one who felt lonely and depressed, and so he stopped visiting Miriel altogether. His entire love was now given to his son, Feanor, whom Finwë would raise all alone. As his loneliness grew too great, he went to the Valar and asked for counsel, expressing to them that he did not desire to be alone for the rest of his life, and that Yngwë, the king of the Vanyar, had many children, while he had only one son. Then the Valar offered Miriel a re-embodiment so that she could leave the halls of Mandos and return back to Finwë and their son, but she refused. So they held a council, as Finwë's situation was difficult and unprecedented, and they knew that Eru's plan for the firstborn, or the elves, was that marriage between them would occur only once in their lifetime. This council resulted in the statute of Finwë and Miriel. When the spirit of a spouse, husband or wife, shall for any cause pass into the keeping of Mandos, then the living may be permitted lawfully to take another spouse, if the former union be dissolved forever. So, as Miriel refused one more time to be re-embodied, Finwë was free to marry another elf once again. 13 years had passed since Miriel died, when Yngwë invited Finwë to Valmar, so that the presence of the Valar might heal his sorrow. In his many wanderings there, Finwë met Indis the Fair once again in the slopes of Taniquetil, the holy mountain of Manwë and Varda. Indis was a golden-haired Vanyarin elf, and the daughter of Finwë's sister, thus his niece. Now Indis had loved Finwë since before the Vanyar left for Valmar, when they and the Noldor still lived together in Tirion. It was then that Finwë saw the light of Laurelin shining on Indis' face, and finally understood that she secretly loved him. Thus, the marriage of Finwë and Indis came to be, and Finwë was happy again. With Indis as his wife and the new queen of the Noldor, Finwë had 4 children: Finndis, Fingolfin, Irime, and Finarfin. But although Finwë was joyful with his new family, the shadow of Miriel, his previous wife, did not leave him, nor his house. For of all his children, he still loved Feanor, his firstborn, the most. And Feanor was never fond of Indis and his half-siblings from his father's new marriage, and Feanor and Fingolfin were ever at rivalry with one another. Now Feanor had managed to capture the holy light of the 2 trees inside 3 jewels, which were called the Silmarils. And Melkor, who had been imprisoned for many years in the halls of Mandos, coveted them. So, in order to steal them from Feanor, he spread lies throughout Valinor and started a strife between the House of Finwë. This strife rekindled the rivalry between Finwë's older sons, Feanor and Fingolfin. In order to make them reconcile with one another, Finwë held a council, But in this council, Fëanor arrived armed and threatened Fingolfin with his weapon. Due to this action, the Valar banished Fëanor to 12 years of exile, and he removed to his fortress of Formenos, which resided to the north of Aman. Finwë went with him because of the love he harbored for his eldest son, and while doing so, he left Fingolfin to rule in his stead. Then, Melkor visited Finwë and Fëanor in Formenos, and tried to persuade Fëanor to leave for Middle-earth and take the Silmarils with him. Fëanor rejected him, Melkor disappeared, and Finwë, out of fear for him, sent messengers to inform the Valar about what had happened. It was when the whole land of Valinor was celebrating and the cities were empty that Melkor appeared again. He had sought the help of Ungoliant, an evil spirit of spider form. Together, they destroyed the 2 trees of Valinor and filled the land with darkness. Finwë had not joined the festivities, proclaiming to the Valar, "While the ban lasts upon Fëanor my son, that he may not go to Tirion, I hold myself unkinged, and I will not meet my people." Soon, Melkor and Ungoliant headed to Formenos, and Finwë was the only one in Formenos who could defy the horror of the dark that stood before him. It was there, before the doors of the fortress, that Finwë, the first king of the Noldor, was killed by Melkor, spilling the first blood in the holy land of the Valar. Finwë's spirit passed to the halls of Mandos. There, he met Miriel, his first wife again. Later, as with every elf, Finwë had the choice of reincarnation. But when he was asked by the Valar, he refused and preferred instead to stay there with his son, Fëanor, who, after many dark deeds, had passed away, and his spirit had found its way to the halls of Mandos, being forever banned from returning to the land of the living. Finwë's choice gave Miriel a chance to be reincarnated again, as would soon happen. Although Finwë would die in the Blessed Realm, his legacy and bloodline would live on through his grandchildren, Maedhros, Maglor, Celegor, Caranthir, Curufin, Amrod, and Amras from Fëanor, his first son, Fingon, Turgon, Aredhel, and Argon from Fingolfin, his second son, and Finrod, Angrod, Aegnor, and Galadriel from Finarfin, his third son. In fact, from Turgon and Galadriel, the house of Finwë would reach even to the 4th Age, through Idril, Turgon's daughter, and Celebrian, Galadriel's daughter, and through Eärendil, the son of Idril, and once more by his sons, Elrond and Elros, to the kings and queens of Númenor, Aragorn, Arwen, their son Eldarion, and beyond. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one on Maegovanen. Namarie.